So here we are. Last video possibly you'll ever get from me. So hopefully everything's going well. I know most of you all are doing well. Most of you all have done what you're supposed to do. So I congratulate you for that. You've kept up with your work. So congratulations. Hopefully the final will go well. You know, the final can be stressful. Don't let it be. I realize that the stress of having to pass it can make it, really nerve-wracking, but what you have to do is prepare for it. So if you're prepared, there's nothing to be nervous about. So I just want to go over a couple things, just some reminders. I'm going to do some examples here in a little bit, but just some kind of helpful hints so you don't have trouble. Because believe me, I don't want to fail you. I don't like when students fail. But we have a policy, and if you don't pass the final, there's nothing I can do. Now, I review the exam, so, some of you all, your mistakes are minor oftentimes, so it gives you good partial credit, but you can't always rely on that. So, make your 3x5 card. And when you make it, try to put things on there that will help you. So, whether it be formulas, whether it be, examples, whatever. I mean, it can be whatever you want. Try to make it so it will help you. And you may not know what you need until you do the practice, take the final exam practice. But that's okay. So when you run into something, you're like, man, I don't know if I can do this, if I remember this, well, write it down. Okay, so you have something to refer to. I don't make the test, in my opinion, unusually difficult, but I make it so, do you know how to graph? Do you know how to factor? Do you know how to solve? Do you know how to do this? Blah, 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 blah. But, if you've been making A's and B's, you're going to be fine. Unless someone's been helping you, which, oftentimes is the case for people that fail the final. Often, not always, but often they're getting help because there's no logical explanation for someone that makes A's on every test and makes a 20 on the final. That's not anxiety, okay? Now, if you're making C's on all the tests and you fail the final, well, that could be anxiety. All right. So, I told you first day, do your own work. So that's the key. So, as you do this practice for the final, don't do it the day before. Try to get on it now. Do it without your notes because you don't have all your notes on the day of the final. So, take the practice as you would be taking it in a computer lab. Your note card, your pencil, your paper, your calculator, and then you will know what you know and what you don't know. And then, as you work through stuff, if you don't know how to do number 10, well, see what chapter it's from. Most of the time you can find out what chapter things are from and go back and review. But don't be a looker-backer. I know it's funny, isn't it? That's what I call students that like to look back for every single step because you don't have that on the test, so that could be a reason you're getting nervous. Okay, so just prepare. Try not to be too nervous and be confident you know what you're doing. I want everybody to pass, okay? So do your best. The final is due Wednesday, December 7th. So make sure you've made arrangements. Many of y'all have. You don't need to email me letting me know you've set up a proctor at one of our campuses, wherever, any KCTCS campus, because my information is posted. If you're doing ProctorU, do ProctorU. It's about $20, $20, $30. You can do it at home, but you got to have a webcam. Don't email me at 7 o'clock at night sitting at the library waiting to take a final, needing the password. I mean, seriously, come on now. I've told you to give me 24-hour notice. Give me 24-hour notice. Plan. Plan, plan, plan. That's what math teaches you, is how to plan. So plan ahead. Make sure you take care of it by Wednesday and prepare for it. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to pick some stuff out of the air. Just some things that I know students struggle with, and for you to keep an eye on. Okay. All right, so let me get me some paper. I'm getting ready to turn my high-tech webcam around. You would probably love to see how I have this rigged. I mean, I'm talking, this is old school jerry rigging, as we call it, with the webcam, but I'm going to take my lamp that this is attached to, and I'm going to flip it over and try to get a level shot. That's the hardest thing for me to do, is get a level shot. Okay. All right. But you know what? You ought to be impressed that I am 54 and I do YouTube videos. Okay. So that should be the most impressive thing. All right. Let's just start with a fractional equation. Now, on some of the, I'm going to try to get through these, as quick as possible, just so you're not sitting on this computer for an hour. So I may not finish every single example I do, but what I want to do is point out where I think trouble areas are. So when we have fractional equations, the biggest problem I see that students have is clearing the fraction. So keep in mind that you're dividing by 15, you're dividing by 5, and you're dividing by 10. So in order to get rid of division, I must multiply. But I have to multiply everything by the same number. So I'm going to multiply everything by 30, because 30 is the smallest number that 15 divides into, 5 divides into, and 10 divides into. Now, what I often do with my students is I keep everything as one fraction. Like, for example, I'm going to multiply 30 times that, x minus 9 over 15. I'm going to take 30 times the 6 over 5. And I'm going to take minus 30 times the x minus 7 over 10. Now, what this, I think, helps students to realize is, see, I'm just reducing this now. That's all I'm doing. And if I reduce 30 by 15, I get 2. But see, the 15 goes away. So I'm left with 2 times x minus 9. Over here, I'm reducing the 30 by 30 by 5 to get 6. Well, 6 times 6 is 36. Over here, I'm multiplying the 30 by the 10, or excuse me, blah, 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 reducing the 30 by the 10, which gives me a 3. So that leaves me with minus 3 times x minus 7. So that is how, you clear your fractions. That's going to be left for you to finish. Just make sure, a couple things, when you multiply by negative 3, you're multiplying the x and the negative 7, and make sure that becomes a positive 21. Excuse me. I've had some coughs lately. So, all right, so make sure you take care of that. Another type of problem I see are solving equations by factoring. Let's do minus 12x minus 36 equals 0. Excuse me. X squared minus 5x minus 36 is 0. Now, how do I know I messed up there? Because there aren't two factors of 36 with a difference of 12. And that's the whole thing with factoring. When this is a 1 up here, you create your two parentheses. We are solving. X times x is x squared. These two numbers here have to meet two stipulations. One, they must multiply to give you negative 36. And they have to subtract to give you 5. Now, I guarantee every one of you right now is saying, oh, 9 and 4. Yes. minus 9, and plus 4. So that's what you have to say to yourself, because I know factoring is a problem area. So you must figure out those double stipulations there. See, because I don't care about the x's right now. I'm looking at all numbers. I'm looking at the negative 36, the negative 5. The x's will take care of themselves by your inner terms and your outer terms when you do your FOIL. So this is minus 9x plus 4x is minus 5x. But you don't need to worry about that. Just worry about minus 9 and 4. So that's the factoring part. Now to solve, and we can't forget to solve, because some people will give me the answer of negative 9 and 4. That's not the solution. Those are the factors. My solution is 9 or negative 4. Okay? So, when we talk about solving equations, make sure you understand how to solve an equation. There's different rules for everything. When you do an inequality, for example, if you were doing, say, a compound inequality, well, first I've got to isolate the x here, so I'm adding 3 everywhere. Then I'm dividing everything by 2. So there's my solution. Now, on a number line, make sure that you use brackets, because, see, these are both greater than or equal to and less than or equal to. And using interval notation, which some of us are having trouble with, again, you use the brackets. If it's just less than or greater than, you use parentheses. Also, remember, if you multiply or divide by a negative number, you've got to reverse the symbols here. Okay? So there's several things to, remember. Now, radicals. If I have something like this, da, da, da. Well, to solve this equation here, I'm going to square both sides. The reason why I do that is because I have to get rid of this square root. So 3x minus 1, because the squaring just cancels out, the square root just undoes it, equals 16. Add 1, divide by 3, and there's your solution. Okay? Absolute value equations. Now always remember, when you're doing an absolute value equation, you've got to get the absolute value of whatever's inside by itself. So I have to subtract the 3 first from both sides. Now I create 2 equations, because whatever's inside here, to take the absolute value to get 7, needs to be either 7 or negative 7. Okay, so oftentimes students forget 2 solutions for absolute value. When you type your answers into, my math lab, don't type x equals. Some of you are still doing that, and it's causing you to miss the problem. I mean, I'll correct it, but why go through the stress of thinking you failed it when you had 4 questions correct? You just typed x equals. So a solution set means you just type 7, comma, whatever the answer is, comma, the other answer. Don't put parentheses unless you're doing interval notation or a point. Just type the numbers in. They're giving you a solution set. Just put the numbers in separated by a comma. Okay? So that's kind of like some of the solving things I know we have trouble with. Graphing's another one. Slope. Okay? If I am graphing an equation that's all set up all nice like this, well, I am choosing 0 for x and 0 for y. Because 6 is divisible by 2 and 3, I'm going to get nice whole numbers here. So you see, if x is 0, then that goes away. 2y is 6, y is 3. Okay? Because points, remember, these are solutions. So if I put in 0 for x and 3 for y, I make a true statement here. And that's what points on a line are. They're solutions to the equation. We just can't possibly list all the points on a line. So we find 2, draw it, and we assume that everything else on that line is a solution. So the other one I find is I let y equal 0. So if I let y be 0, that goes away. 3x equals 6, x equals 2. So this is your y-intercept because it has a number for y and a 0 for x. This is the x-intercept because it has a number for x and a 0 for y. And sometimes we get those confused, okay? So that's 2, 0. This is 0, 3, and then you just draw your line, okay? Now, this line here has a negative slope. Well, if I need to know what the slope is of this, I have to solve it for y. So I subtract my 3x from both sides, and when I do that, I cannot combine the 3x and the 6, so I just list them. Then I divide everything by 2. Well, division's like multiplication. We can distribute. So my equation in slope-intercept form is negative 3/2 x plus 2. That's my slope. So that means if I wanted to graph this, by using my slope-intercept form, I've done something wrong here. Sorry about that. 2 and 3. I was wondering what was going on here. If I wanted to graph this using slope-intercept form, look at it. I plot 3, which is the y-intercept. I go down 3, right 2. Well, there I am. Okay, so these are 2 different ways to get the same thing. Okay, but make sure you know how to do that. Equation of a line. Make sure that you know that this is what you can use to find the equation of the line. You need a point and the slope. So if my point is 1, negative 2, and my slope is negative 3, well, y minus the y-coordinate equals negative 3 times x minus the x-coordinate. Well, see, this becomes y plus 2, and that's negative 3x plus 3. Then I subtract 2 from both sides to put it in slope-intercept form. Okay. All right, so that's kind of some of the stuff on graphing, on lines. Again, I don't really want to take up all your time to go over every single thing. I'm just trying to highlight areas that, I know give students trouble. One of them are these polynomial functions. So I'm kind of in chapter 5 right now. When you have something like this, okay, and I want to graph that, well, don't forget your zeros. Come from here, come from here, and come from here. So my zeros are 0, negative 2, positive 3. It's the opposite sign of the factor. Since this does not have a number, it's a 0. All right. Now, when your power is even, the graph touches the x-axis at that number. When the power is an odd number, and these are both 1s here, the graph crosses it. So, you know, if I look at the graph, I plot these intercepts. So, to get an idea of what the shape is going to be, I'm going to put -3 into this equation. And use your calculator here. You know, don't risk messing up. So this is -3 times -1 times -6 squared. Well, this is +3 times 36, which is 108. So that means that point is somewhere up here. Okay, these graphs can get really big and really small. But all I know is that it's above. So knowing what I know, that it crosses here, and touches here, I can at least get an idea of the sketch of it. Okay, and it's going to look something like that. Sorry about that. All right, so that's kind of a polynomial. You know, there's more things to it than that, but I'm just trying to go over some highlights here. Another topic, possible concern is your synthetic division. You know, if I want to determine if something can be factored, I do synthetic division, and we oftentimes like to do it with when we have polynomials of higher than degree 2. Okay, and if I want to know if I wanted to divide by x plus 2, well, in synthetic division, I use the opposite sign of my factor, and I put my coefficients right in order. And what I do is I create nice little boxes. Okay, and see down here is my what I call the quotient row, and we automatically take this number down into here. Then we multiply, combine like terms, do it again. -2 times -5 is 10. 10 plus 4 is 14. -2 times 14 is -28, which is -33. Do it again, 66 and 74. So right here is your remainder. Now there's two ways to figure out the quotient. One is to work back. So this is your constant term, coefficient of x squared, coefficient of x cubed. The other way is, since we're dividing by an x plus 2 and we start with an x to the 4th, this has to be the x cubed term. Okay, so that's how you get your quotient. Okay, so some other things now is kind of off the last test, the logarithms, although I thought we did pretty well on those. But just remember, if you are solving a logarithmic equation, change it to the exponential equivalent. So 3 is your base, 2 is your exponent, and that's equal to what I call the number. So then 9 is 3x minus 1. Solve for x. Add 1. Divide by 3. So x is 10/3.
weeks, yeah. Just for
Similarly,
I was there to take his payments. Do you remember?
with an exponential equation,
Okay. Joanna, can I say something?
if I have 5 to the x power is 27, I change it to a logarithm. So my log of base 5 of 27 is equal to my exponent, because logarithms equal exponents. Now I have to use my change of base formula. Log 27 divided by log 5 is x. Now, if they ask you to, leave it as a fraction, whatever, but I mean, make it a decimal, you should be fine. But just make sure you know how to do this. So log 27 divided by log 5 equals about 2.05, and that's my x. Okay. So, I mean, this is just some highlights of things I know that give students trouble. But again, I'm just going to tell you, the best way is for you to get on there and practice it and spend some time. Don't put it off till the end, and do your best. So if you do run into any questions or any problems, just let me know, and I will do what I can. But go in there. It's I believe your review, your practice final is set up just like homework, so you can just rework one problem over and over and over again. You can't like rework the entire assignment because it is a homework. So you'll just have to go in there and just, if you have trouble with factoring, work on the factoring. If you have trouble with graphing, work on the graphing. All right, but it's on you now. So put the time in. All right, so good luck with that.